Hey everyone, I'm Zaptie, and I'm going to be filling in for Pyro today. Don't really see a point in giving any further ado, so let's just get right into it. So bad it's good. If you've been on the internet for longer than 3 weeks and talked about any form of media with more than 4 people, you've undoubtedly heard this used to describe something. Perhaps it was a song, or a movie,
hi babe,
or a YouTube video.
My daughter looks worryingly similar to Madeline McCann.
It's a feeling that we simply know when we feel it. And so bad it's good, to me, is one of the most frustrating phrases that I regularly hear, as it technically doesn't make sense, and yet it can be a perfect descriptor. There are a huge amount of things that fall under this blanket term. A large majority of media referred to with this prestigious title is movies, all of varying quality. Now there are several classic, as Chris Stuckman calls them, hilariosities, many of which you've probably at least heard of in passing. 2003's The Room is perhaps the most famous, be it for the hilariously overlong sex scenes, the bizarre amount of football passing, the incredible dialogue.
He hit you?
He didn't know what he was doing.
Are you okay?
Well, I don't want to marry him anymore.
What?
Or the entirety of Tommy Wiseau's existence.
I did not hit her. It's not true. It's bullshit. I did not hit her. I did not. Oh, hi, Mark.
This is a movie that's practically impossible to watch alone, as it simply feels awkward when some of the ridiculous shit happens, especially the aforementioned sex scenes. But in a group, it's perhaps the best time you'll ever have, especially if you're intoxicated. Nothing makes sense. Various storylines are introduced and then swiftly abandoned, ranging from why this character is busy when he's sitting in a parked car in the middle of the day, to
I definitely have breast cancer.
never being followed up on, to a drug purchasing subplot that lasts for exactly one scene of largely repeated dialogue.
Where's my money? Where's my money? Where's my money?
Where's my fucking money? Where's my fucking money?
I owe him some money.
What kind of money?
I owe him some money.
What kind of money? What kind of money?
To who the actual fuck this man is. He doesn't get any introduction, he just fucking waltzes right into the party and starts chatting some shit.
You make me sick.
Who the fuck are you?
It's truly a fascinating disaster of a film, and I cannot recommend it enough. Another oft-quoted film matching this description is Troll 2. Some of you may have seen this, or perhaps even seen the original Troll, which only serves to make this sequel more fascinating. The first Troll movie is an admittedly forgettable, pretty shit movie where the Potter family, and yes, there are not one but two characters named Harry Potter, and this movie predates the books by about 10 years, but essentially, it's a weird fantasy movie with, you guessed it, trolls in it. Now, Troll 2, logically, would be a sequel to Troll, but it isn't. In fact, it was entirely produced under the name Goblins, which would have been far more appropriate considering the word troll is never said at any point in the film, while goblin is uttered numerous times. And this has essentially been a build-up to show a clip you've all probably seen in some way, shape, or form.
They're eating her. And then they're going to eat me. Oh my God!
Having seen the entirety of Troll 2 on more than one occasion, I can honestly say this portion of the film is the primary thing that earns its reputation in my eyes. The rest of it's undoubtedly an irreparable mess, and while there are a few other chuckle-worthy moments here and there, the legendary cry of "Oh my God!" is really the main thing worth watching for. Interestingly enough, there's actually a 2009 documentary about this clusterfuck of a film called Best Worst Movie, which was actually made by Michael Stevenson, the main kid in Troll 2. If you can track down a copy of it and you're interested in that kind of thing, I'd definitely recommend that too, as it's actually very, very interesting. Beyond this, we have some things that are so incompetently made that calling them films is a bit of a stretch. Things like The Amazing Bulk, Oogie Loves in the Big Balloon Adventure, and Jurassic World. These films have a similar sense of ironic entertainment value simply due to the hilarious level of incompetence displayed by everyone involved in each of their productions. James Nguyen's Birdemic might be the leader of this pack, with audio like this.
Hi.
Long shots of the main character driving, and driving, and driving, and driving, and driving, and driving, and driving. Perhaps some of the worst effects, both visual and very special, ever put to film, and the laziest incorporation of promotion I've ever seen. They just printed out the web address on a piece of printer paper and taped it to a fucking wall. And by the way, Birdemic's main theme is that if we don't take care of the environment by not driving cars for very long stretches of runtime, or by not having clothed sex, birds will turn kamikaze and start exploding and murdering everyone. You can see the influences. Hitchcock, the guy who directed Eight-Legged Freaks, Alfred Hitchcock. However, all three of the films I focused on are examples of how these so bad it's good movies should be. To me, they have to be a mess through incompetence. Tommy Wiseau, with every fiber of his being, thought he was making his magnum opus, a true tour de force of cinema that would be discussed long after he's left this humble earth. In a way, he may have succeeded in doing just that, seeing as the movie is now 13 years old and shows no signs of dying down in popularity anytime soon. However, I can guarantee you that this was not how he intended it to happen, and I can almost guarantee that he still thinks it's because people find his movie to be brilliant. Perhaps Perhaps you would suspect that he'd learned something about directing in these last 13 years, but frankly, his TV series The Neighbors, his only project since The Room, which was released a mere 2 years ago, shows that he has not learned anything further about the art of filmmaking, and likely never will, which is good, because honestly, I wouldn't want him to. I like my wife so nice and oblivious. Troll 2 was just a shit movie. There's really no nice way to put that, and there's no credit to give. It was never going to be good even when it was called Goblins, but it ended up being so astoundingly bad, likely due to the production crew giving negative fucks about how the product ended up, that a lot of people found some joy in it. The most sizable disaster, Birdemic, was made as a labor of love by James Nguyen, and his passion and drive for a project that ended up being so terrible is genuinely admirable. It took nearly 4 years to make, as Nguyen funded the whole thing through his day job, which caused more than a few financial problems. Filming took 7 months in order to work around actors' schedules, with Tommy Wiseau certainly doesn't bother to do, and the visual effects alone must have taken at least a year for him to do by himself. At least. Birdemic is a disaster, but it's a disaster that was meant to be a masterpiece. These movies, in my opinion, are the best kinds of so bad it's good movies. The Neil Breens, whose 3 films are funnier than anything the Wayans brothers have done in a decade. The Ed Woods, whose Plan 9 from Outer Space might have been the first movie to be given this title.
One thing sure, Inspector Clay's dead. Murdered. And somebody's responsible.
I proudly own it on Blu-ray and I've seen it 6 times. That is not an exaggeration. It's incredible, highly recommended. There's random footage of Bela Lugosi as a vampire and very human-looking alien. This shit, it's weird. I love it. But the biggest problem with this label is that people have started trying to exploit it ironically, going out of their way to make low-budget garbage movies with terrible effects, writing, acting, and editing. The ironically awful shit just turns out to be unwatchable and frequently ensures to cast actors who have long been out of work for the sake of a joke, maybe? Be it truly horrible actors or some that are genuinely entertaining and have just dried up. And unfortunately, one of the biggest defenders to do this was James Nguyen. If nothing else can be said for Wiseau, it's that ignorance is bliss. It's hard to tell if he truly knows why people love The Room. Sometimes he seems as though he understands that it's because it's so bad. Other times he seems convinced that people saw it how he did and think it's legitimately brilliant filmmaking. On the other hand, Nguyen, unfortunately, became completely aware of why Birdemic was such a success, and as a result, created a sequel that lacked everything that made the original fun. Its accidental nature. Birdemic 2: The Resurrection is quite possibly the worst movie I've ever seen, because it's trying to be, and it's succeeding. At least he can give himself credit for succeeding once. Nguyen attempts to add self-awareness and intentional humor to the film, but quite frankly, he's nowhere near talented enough of a writer to do that, as his debut clearly showed. Self-awareness can work for some films. I mean, musical artists can take advantage of it as well. And hell, some of the funniest comedians, both living and dead, are practically built on self-awareness. But these people, writers, musicians, they're all talented. James Nguyen is not, and his films show it. The charm is gone, beaten out of it, much like jokes about the Fine brothers or using the letter L as an unironic response to anything. Nguyen started off as an innocent, horrible filmmaker, but others can't make the same claim. For those of you particularly into terrible life choices or Tara Reid films, and don't even pretend to be in the latter category as it doesn't exist, you may have seen the Sharknado series, which prior to writing this video, I had no idea there were fucking 4 of. The last one I heard about was the first sequel, brilliantly titled The Second One, which I refused to watch then and refuse to watch now. The same mindset applies to the third film, subtitled Oh Hell No, which is somehow worse than the second one. The newest one, subtitled The Fourth Awakens, hasn't aired yet, but frankly, I'm very offended by the fact that its title insults people with lisps. With all that in mind, I'll only be talking about the first in depth as it's the only one I've seen, but we'll cover all 4 briefly. Frankly, the cameos and random big name actors that appear are all the value these movies have. The novelty of, oh, this person who I know from other things is in this shitty thing, how funny. It's not funny. Famous people appearing is not funny by default, or at least it shouldn't be. Some movies, like This Is the End, pull this concept off quite well. This character, who's actively going after Danny McBride's dick and wearing a human leash, is revealed to be a completely unexpected celebrity who actually delivers funny lines. I won't ruin who it is for those of you who haven't seen it, but it's a textbook example on how to do a cameo that relies on the personality. Sharknado's entire gag is simply that the person is in it. Fucking SpongeBob utilized the David Hasselhoff cameo better than this because it was also a Baywatch parody and also came out of nowhere. This is just, it was David Hasselhoff. It's not fucking funny. Okay, David Hasselhoff isn't even in the first Sharknado movie. I'm getting completely off mission. The first Sharknado is genuinely terrible. I'm sure you didn't need me to tell you that. Oh, wait. Actually, if you check Rotten Tomatoes before watching movies, maybe you did. The number is way too fucking high. But I'm serious. I loathe this thing. I hate it with a passion that burns only slightly less bright than the money pumped into this landfill of a series of images. I'm willing to admit that I'm almost definitely taking this too personally, but I find Sharknado to be incredibly insulting. It's a prime example of sheer laziness being rewarded hand over fist. The acting in it is atrocious, not that anyone be expecting too much from TV discount actors Tara Reid and him. The effects were clearly produced in the minimum time possible. I mean, just Look at that. And I can see the comments now. They're supposed to be terrible. Yeah, I fucking know. The sequel is called The Second One, which wasn't even an original title. A fucking fan came up with it. That is not the subtitle of a film that's trying. But even if it's terrible on purpose, that's an admittance that they're still terrible. The fact of the matter is, being ironically shitty and being shitty are more often than not the exact same thing. Ironically, making something very poorly with no charm is still poorly made and charmless. If someone had a shitty Minecraft Let's Play channel but said it was ironic, would you watch it? Unless they were genuinely funny while doing their shtick, it's not likely. Some of the earlier popular parody movies like Airplane, This Is Spinal Tap, and Hot Shots Part 2, along with more recent ones like Black Dynamite, Walk Hard, and Hot Fuzz, are fine examples of how to nail what ironically shitty films attempt. Because on top of the irony and the satire, they're genuinely hilarious and genuinely well made. Effort goes into them. The performances are convincing, even if they're cheesy, but the lines throughout vary from clever to outright stupid. Yet the sincerity and effort behind it makes it all gold. The ridiculousness of some of these film scenarios, such as fighting in a miniature village, or one man slapping another, having the actor break character and quit, then replacing him all within a few seconds of film time, or having a woman panicking over a possible plane crash get violently beaten by people of all ethnicities with all kinds of weapons. While I'm on the topic of Airplane, Seth MacFarlane's Ted is another example of where satire doesn't work, because rather than do anything original with the bar dance scene from Airplane, it just copies it verbatim, adding literally no value except that Mark Wahlberg and Mila Kunis are performing the dance now. It's almost like if you made videos about other people's content that has infinitely more value than your own. A sad world that would be. However, Sharknado doesn't have that dedication or love to its roots. Sharknado is sci-fi's depressingly successful attempt at cashing in despite having completely lost their ability to make decent content. While there have undoubtedly been a handful of high-quality exceptions to this rule over the year, the network has recently descended into unadulterated schlock. And on top of that, Sharknado is not sci-fi's only intentional B-movie offender. In fact, they have a whole series of these. The amalgamation titles aren't even limited to Sharknado, nor is the inclusion of fucking sharks, as Sharktopus exists. Sharktopus. And perhaps this shouldn't be surprising coming from the Asylum, a company behind masterworks such as Mega Shark vs. Giant Octopus, Atlantic Rim, Almighty Thor, and Abraham Lincoln vs. Zombies. They solely exist to produce these ironically garbage films, or to hastily make films with similar titles to recent blockbusters. Transmorphers, for example, so that 70-year-old women making a trip to the drugstore can get confused by the titles and buy it for their spoiled grandchild's 7th birthday. Despite how hard I've been on these faux B movies, there's nothing inherently wrong with enjoying them. Clearly, if they've made 4 fucking Sharknado movies, more people like them than don't. There's exactly one moment where I can completely understand the enjoyment of Sharknado.
Claudia, move!
Because that scene is fucking ridiculous and actually pretty funny to me. Yet my main wonder is how the fuck you even made it that far when it's literally at the end of the movie. Did you not get bored in the first 30 minutes and shut it off? I initially did. For me, movies that are so bad they're good are a dish best served while heavily intoxicated. Seeing as I've actually watched Sharknado while quite drunk, I can safely say that it did nothing but piss me off, while the other films I've mentioned had me crying of laughter. There's obviously no correct perception on what so bad it's good actually is. It's one of those know it when you see it things, and it really does vary from person to person. But the fact of the matter is, you deserve better terrible movies. Movies where the director, through and through, put their heart and soul into it, only to have both completely obliterated by the 2% Rotten Tomatoes rating and their name changing from meaning essentially nothing into a synonym for untalented. As much as we'd like to pretend it's not true, failures are entertaining. And with that said, Sharknado is not a failure. The biggest thing that makes a movie, any movie, enjoyable, at least in my opinion, is heart. Sure, that doesn't always apply on an emotional level, as Crank 2 is one of my favorite movies ever made, and they certainly weren't going for a heartstring tug with that one, but the passion and effort put into making that film is very clearly displayed. As I mentioned earlier, the same goes for Hot Fuzz, Black Dynamite, Airplane, all these movies. I find it incredibly difficult to enjoy any form of media if I can blatantly tell that it was lazily slapped together for the hope of a quick profit. And frankly, calling Sharknado lazily slapped together is an insult to laziness, slapping, and things being conjoined. So perhaps, rather than watch a soulless cash grab that features more washed-up actors than it does terribly rendered sharks, maybe opt for a film in which a polygamous man is in an emotionally and physically abusive relationship with a pair of laptops. I can pretty much guarantee you will have a much, much better time. Again, I'm Zaptie. My channel will be linked in the description. Thanks again to Pyrocynical for featuring me, and I hope you guys enjoyed.